Well, good morning. This is day 3, I guess, or my full days at least. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. I am at yet another waterfall to start off what is actually going to be my last day. I was going to stay through tomorrow, which is Monday, but they're talking about pretty heavy rain coming in overnight and then all day tomorrow. And given where I'm at, I've got to make a fording to get to my campsite. My campsite itself is in, what am I trying to say? Campsite itself is in a flash flood zone, so certainly don't want to mess about with that. So I'm going to try to hit several waterfalls today and then start making my way back to Texas. So we'll get set up here at this location, which I was here in 2019. Once again, I turned the wrong way. And we'll go from there. So back in 2019, I was set up right about here for my composition of split personality. However, as you can see in the foreground here, there's a ton of deadfall that is washed down. It's kind of all over. There's some there, some over there, some off on the left. So I'm really going to have to reconsider. I was hoping to remake split personality with green foliage, because again, when we were here in 2019, it was mostly bare trees still. Basically the very tail end of winter, even though it was the beginning of April. But that shot is not going to work with all this deadfall, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to get clever. I could get out in the water. I just got to be careful because the bigger boulders are really slick with algae. Where it's gravel bottom, it's fine. But I've got to walk on a lot of the bigger boulders that are submerged, and they're super, super slick. So I'm going to have to kind of hunt around and see if I can find an alternative composition. Unfortunately, anything that's got the full width of the falls with any kind of foreground is pretty much out of the question thanks to this deadfall. It's going to be a little bit tricky to figure out, but we'll see what we can come back with. Thankfully, the flow is pretty good. Didn't know what to expect given what I've found elsewhere. It's been a mixed bag. So, got good flow. As you saw when I first arrived and was recording, really nice color in the pool of the water again, just like we had back in 2019. Just got to see if I can find a composition that's going to work this year. So let me shut down the video here and see what I can figure out. Okay, I'm not going to lie, I'm really struggling here. So what I've actually done is come further downstream than where I was in 2019. Even when I'm walking on the dry boulders, I'm still having traction issues and slipping a bit because my sandals are wet from the shallower water I am walking through. So this is turning into a struggle. I think I might try actually just doing a broader, not vista view, but wider angle view from further back with the falls in the background. There's some nice cascades if I can get them in all through here. If I could get down there to a decent location. I don't want to set my tripod in the water because it's moving quickly enough. It's going to introduce issues with camera shake. No doubt about that. But if I can get down to some of these boulders down here and set up, there's a lot of little foliage growing up, and again, those cascades kind of reminds me of some areas in Ireland when I shot along the, I think it's Owen Garif, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, below Torque Waterfall back in 2019. I also really like, if I can get it in here, this little cluster of trees right here. If I can incorporate those somehow into the shot. I'm not quite sure how I'll manage that because they're about even with as far back as I think I'm going to be able to get to take any kind of composition, and then the waterfalls are going to be out of the question. So I'm going to have to play around here. I'm going to have to play around with different focal lengths too, because obviously if I'm shooting really wide angle, the main cascades in the background, or the main waterfall in the background is going to get really tiny really quickly. So Also, I have the sun breaking through thinning clouds now, so I'm going to have to manage my exposures just in terms of highlights and shadows as well. But I think I'll be okay there. There's enough clouds drifting through still that it should kind of soften that sunlight up. And I don't mind the sunlight as long as it's a little bit softer than full bore. When it's full bore, it's multiple exposure time and blending and all that junk, which I'd prefer to avoid because I'm lazy. Why go through all that work? So anyways, I'm going to see if I can get down there and see what the composition looks like, and we'll go from there. I'm not sure how much video I'll be able to do unless I set up a video camera on the tripod and just let it run. So that is the plan right now. Again, the main cascades are back there, so we'll see what we can do. There are some cascades, some decent sized cascades. I think I'm getting them in back through there, that theoretically if I get further downstream somewhere on the bank, maybe I could get something. That's a pretty deep pool, so I'm not going to be able to stand out there to shoot straight up the stream towards the main waterfall there. I'm not exactly sure how I would get down there anyways. I'd have to go a little bit further down the road and see if there's a path worn to get down to that bank down there. So I've got some options. I'm just going to have to play around and see if anything works, or see what works, if anything. So fingers crossed. So per my usual, I'm just taking some test compositions with the old iPhone. Actually don't mind this one at 24 millimeters, and I'm not getting that interesting tree cluster over there. As much as I like it, like I said, I don't know that I'll be able to get it in. I mean, if I go to at 14 millimeters, I can get it and the falls in the back, so that's not too bad. I don't want to make the falls too small. If I come down here, I think I'm going to lose the height I need. Oh, and these rocks are shifting. So I could shoot from down here, which I've got some nice cascades running through, and a decent foreground with this little bush growing out here. The downside is I completely lose the pool, which has that wonderful color. Now, I don't have to shoot the pool. If I shoot back here, this is kind of nice too. Although again, I'm kind of losing the falls. Yeah, I don't mind that. So I think I'm going to grab the camera and set up and see what I can do. I've got a good view of the cascade straight ahead of me. The foliage is still in the way. If I set up here, I can likely get some of that tree grouping that I like so much. See if I can even get a stable tripod set up here. Of course, now the sun's going to come out really harsh. Alright, let's just get set up for the shot and just see what we got. Oh man, I just realized I left all my filters in my bag. Son of a gun. Okay, well let's just try the composition at least. Just going to take a test shot. Of course, I am definitely blowing out the sky, but that's fine. This shot is fine. I really wish that bush that's straight ahead of me, it's just got one little branch sticking up. It's right almost smack dab in the middle of the main cascade, which is really unfortunate. If I could somehow get over there, that would be pretty good, but I can do it, but then I'm going to have wet sandals and I'm never going to be able to get back. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. I may have to shoot more up there and forego this nice cascade here. Because I really don't like that bush sticking up. Just need to get over, like that boulder right there would be perfect. I just really don't think I can get there safely. And I don't feel like breaking me or giving my camera gear a bath. But first things first, I'm set up here, so I'm going to hop back over, get my filters, and I'll go ahead and take the shots I need for this composition. I really don't think I'm going to like them. I would never do it, but man, printing shears would be nice. But I would never, ever, ever, ever do that. Nor should you. So anyways, make a hop, skip, and jump back over, get my filters that I left in my bag, and get the shots here, and then continue to play around with different compositional options. Easy for me to say. I can assure you this is entirely safe. Actually, it's perfectly fine, and I can come back over here. So I've got the tripod straddling between a few different boulders now. By getting the camera over just that little bit, I was mostly able to eliminate that bush or that plant, whatever it is, that's in the foreground, out of the main fall for the most part. I think it's just creeping in maybe. So I think this is going to work. I'm still going to try some different compositions, but I'm feeling pretty good about this. I would like to get some shots that have the pool at the base of the waterfall, because it's got such wonderful color. So just keep working the scene. As sometimes happens, once I saw the different framing of the various shots on my computer, I ended up preferring my initial composition, with the offshoot of the plant splitting the main fall in the background. The second composition that I was happy with in the field didn't make the cut, as a different part of that same plant ended up covering the majority of the larger falls on the right of the foreground tree. I still wish that plant was at least a bit smaller to interfere with the composition less, but in the end, I'm very happy with the image you see here. Alright, so I've moved forward to the other location I had speculated might work. I'm trying to move a little bit quickly here. This is a more popular waterfall with easy access literally right off the road, and it's getting a little busy, so I want to get my shots in before I lose the opportunity. I'm using a 1/4 of a second shutter, and I'm just controlling exposure with my ISO and taking multiple shots as I think I need to. Now, of course, I've got pretty strong sunlight on the scene right now, but I'm going to go ahead and take some shots and see if any of the single frames will work in post. I think some of these may actually, even from the prior composition. And we'll bump the ISO even further, get another shot, try to make sure I've got shadow detail. Should be good there. So even though I'm using ISO to control my exposure, I'm still sitting at ISO 400, which on the R5, Canon R5, is the, I guess, dual gain threshold, for lack of a better way to put it, where it's got better noise performance than, say, ISO 320 or 200 even. So it's a good sweet spot between using ISO 100 versus ISO 400. And I think I'm going to play with my polarization a little bit more, let a little bit more of the water glow come into the foreground. Let's try that at ISO 100, which is likely too dark. ISO 400, which is too bright, especially as the sun comes back out, but this could be a good frame for shadows. Honestly, I'm not blowing my highlights that much on this either, so this may actually work. And I've got this main large tree kind of in the left center of the frame, right between the falls, kind of like what I did in Split Personality back in 2019. I do have all that deadfall in the foreground, but I'm hoping these rocks and the foliage in the foreground kind of play off those or take the eye away from those a little bit. And then I'm just going to wait for some clouds to drift over and see if I can get a little less harsh sunlight I don't mind the dappled light, it looks nice, but it does make the exposures a little bit more difficult. I actually zoom out just a smidge. I need to be careful, zoomed out all the way with my filters on. I am getting some vignetting, so I actually need to come in a little bit. There's one downside to using the super wide with front element filters. So I bring this back down to a fourth of a second. I'm at ISO 200, which actually seems to be a decent sweet spot for my exposure. Bring the frame up. I don't really want to include any sky. I'm also getting a bright spot in the lower left corner of the frame, so let me zoom back in a little bit. Now I do have some branches hanging down in front of the main cascade, but I'm happier with that than when they were coming up from the bottom of the cascade and blocking on the foliage for my other composition, or my first composition I tried. I'm getting a little motion blur in the foliage, but I really like the dappled light on the falls themselves here, so I'm going to just keep taking some shots and hoping I can get some foliage at still for a moment. But I'm thinking this ISO 200 f16 quarter of a second is kind of the sweet spot even with good light or strong sunlight. Of course, now the wind is picking up, which it's supposed to be doing throughout the rest of the day, so that's something else I'm going to have to be fighting with. So again, let me continue to focus on this, and hopefully I can get a shot with the foliage not blowing around, and then I'm probably going to head over to the right and try to get a shot similar to Arkansas Jade that I took back in 2019 to get that really strong color in the pool and make that the focal point along with the falls themselves. And then I'll move on. I've got about an hour and 20-minute drive from here to the other waterfalls I want to visit today. It is currently 10:16, so the day is getting on. Tune in next week for the final episode of this Arkansas series, when I visit a truly spectacular triple waterfall to close out the trip before heading home to Texas. Thank you, as always, to my Patreon members for the ongoing contributions as I pursue my passion to bring the beauty of the world into your homes through videos like this and more. If you'd like to help support my work, you can do so by becoming a member of my Patreon, purchasing fine art prints via my website, or by making a one-time donation through PayPal. Your support is always greatly appreciated.